Hello folks and welcome to today's show with myself, Shane Stapleton and Michael Verney, brought to you by OurGame.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off. We've got John Meyler coming soon, Michael. Should we talk a bit of Clare and Kilkenny before we get to that? I mean, what a Sunday it was.
Yesterday, you have to start just briefly with yesterday, Shane. Like, you've been in Croke Park several times as I have. But my God, there were so many stages during that game yesterday where the place was shaking. Like, it was brilliant. It was just, listen, we built it up as a brilliant game, and they had it built up themselves as a brilliant game based on the Páirc Uí Chaoimh game earlier on this year. Oh, it lived up to it anyway. Did it surpass it? It wasn't a million miles off it, I tell you that. You couldn't take your eyes off it. It was, to me now, it was hurling at its finest. And particularly from a Cork point of view. And I'm glad Cork went at Limerick. They went to beat them on the scoreboard. There was no negative stuff. There was no extra defenders. There was no messing around. There was 3 men inside it a lot of the time. We are going to outgun ye. We're going to put more on the board than ye are. We're going to try and blitz ye for pace. And at different stages they did. But it was just, and even despite all that, Limerick were still able to bring him down the stretch. It was fantastic. It was brilliant to watch. It was everything that you want in a hurling match, really.
Yeah, and both teams just threw the kitchen sink at each other. I thought it was so interesting the way Cork, and this wouldn't have been for the first time, I suppose, really, the way they just decided, we are going to totally take Kyle Hayes out of the game. So basically, Declan Dalton, everyone would have seen it. He went out here. Hayes kind of had to follow him. Obviously, he wanted to get involved in the puck out if it was coming over here. But Cork just said, let's just bash the ball over on this side of the field and hope to win the breaks. And even like thinking the second half, started the second half in particular, when Limerick had been a couple of points ahead, and Cork just started booming puckouts straight down onto the D. And it was Brian Hayes, who was unbelievable, as everyone knows. He broke the ball for Shane Barrett in the 37th minute, and then the 39th minute for Alan Connolly. And it was just like long ball down on top of this big, massive Zaki/Satanta clone. And it was just so difficult to deal with. And everyone said, well, sure, look, Limerick are going to be able to adjust from the puckouts that happened the last day, and that'll be sorted. Cork will have to find something different. Well, by God, let's just double down, says Pat Ryan, and they got joy out of it.
I like the old double down as a blackjack tactic. So Cork definitely doubled down on their tactics. It was brilliant to watch. And like, in one sense, they hammered the hammer. In another sense, they avoided the hammer. They went like I think Hayes had 5 possessions in the game.
Yeah,
like that's what they just kept the ball away from it. And you know, it was great from Decky Dalton's point of view. He was so disciplined as well in staying out there, and he got 2 points in the second half within 3 or 4 minutes as a result of that. Just being the out ball there and pulling Hayes away. And I saw a couple of times where Hayes wanted to come across, but it's such a nice thing to have from Patrick Collins' point of view that if Hayes leans across, I have this fella here on the other wing, and if I get him the ball, he could score from anywhere from 100 yards in. But they went down on top of Hannon. The great thing from Brian Hayes' point of view is I think they really exploited the height and weight advantage that he had on both Mike Casey and Sean Finn at different stages. Barry Nash's loss, I thought, was really felt in that instance, because you have a 6'2" fella that would be able to. I remember Aaron Gallagher said on our show that he's able to, like, he's as good as anybody in the air, so he would have maybe been able to negate him a small bit. And the brilliant thing, Hayes was coming in behind Hannon, and it was coming in over on top of him almost, and it was just, they got a hell of a lot of joy out of it. I have to say though, Shane, I was surprised that they left it until the last quarter to put Hayes in at 6. I was surprised they left it that long. Like, if you have a lad that's in hurler of the year form and a team are keeping him out of the game, surely you put him somewhere where he's going to be in the thick of it. Maybe that's 6, maybe that's midfield, maybe that's centre forward. But he played 6 for the last 15 minutes, and Limerick looked, it's no coincidence that Limerick looked a hell of a lot more solid down the middle for the last 15-20 minutes than they did probably for the previous 55. But yeah, in fairness to Cork, they went at Hannon, they went at Burns, and they got a hell of a lot of joy in both areas.
Do you think in some ways we're looking down at that and we're seeing, okay, Hayes is not in the game at all, because we're up in the higher Hogan, and you just this amazing view of the entire pitch and everything that's happening tactically. Whereas when you're down at pitch level, some of these things they're not quite as evident. Now, I've no doubt that Limerick have people up in the stands and all that, and maybe they would have known before. And sure, I asked John Kiley about it afterwards in the press conference, about the whole idea of waiting so long to move Hayes and so on and so forth. and that Cork had done it before. But do you think it's a case that, like, it's easy to say it up there where you're emotionally not involved, and they're thinking, well, if we do put Hannon out in the wing, brilliant and all as he is, he's probably better suited to the centre because, then he's up against a speed merchant out on the wing, and that's not we want to focus on our game and hope it comes right eventually. But evidently, because they had to move Hayes, it showed that they did wait too long.
Yeah, no, I think they did. To be honest with you, Shano, don't get me wrong. I think Sir Declan Hannon has bought all the loyalty in the world, all the loyalty in the world, like the last 5-6 years or whatever. And he's the captain, he's the heartbeat of the team. But when you know that Will O'Donoghue, who wasn't going particularly well, when you know he can play 6, when you know Cottle O'Neill at least has been trialled there, you're not throwing him in out of nowhere, or 7. I thought that's why they made those moves in the league, for exactly that type of scenario in the last 15 or 20 minutes. But it didn't materialise. It was a straight swap. It was Hayes into 6, Hannon out to 7, where I think Barrett got one ball on him and was able to go on the outside, had the pace to still go on the outside and get the shot away under the Cusack stand. And this isn't having a go at Hannon. I think they could have structured things maybe a bit better. It wasn't working. He's pulled lads at different stages before. It wasn't working. And I thought maybe in the last, I probably thought maybe even 45 minutes in that a switch would have been made. But listen, all those problems were created by Cork and Cork's brilliance. And really, like, for Limerick to be beaten, it had to be a near perfect performance by the winners and an off-colour performance a bit by Limerick. And Limerick's off-colour performance was that was manifested by a brilliant Cork performance where they'd man of the match performances all over the pitch, like.
And actually, when Hannon moved out to the wing, Shane Kingston had just been brought on. And I thought, okay, this is going to work out perfectly now for Cork. They're going to keep Kingston on the wing and ask him to run at, a player who's already been on the pitch for 55 minutes or whatever it was. But actually, then he moved into centre forward, and Shane Barrett, who'd obviously, run his guts out at that stage, went out to the wing. And, he still got that beautiful point off the stick or whatever. But I just thought that was a strange one too. And it wasn't a going day for Kingston. We've seen him come in and be man of the match in an All-Ireland semi-final from the bench. Remember, 7 points against Kilkenny.
Can I just say to you, remember when he came on as the blood sub? It's funny when it doesn't go for you in that instance, say the ball around his feet. All of a sudden, I'd imagine, unless you're sky high confidence-wise, you're coming on and you're not as confident as you would have been if you were just straight in as a sub,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Let's just jump over to the other game because we're going to have John Meyler on very, very soon. But your Kilkenny are gone. And, they should have had Clare out of sight. Didn't manage to do it. And eventually were caught.
Shano, you're a big snooker fan. I'm a big snooker fan. When you have chances on the bays and you don't take them, the snooker gods go against you, and those chances don't come back. Kilkenny had the chances to win that game in the first half. No point in saying any different. 5 points was it was not a good lead to have, considering the dominance they had. Probably should have had, Mikey Carey definitely, I would imagine, would have had another goal. To me, they were 10 to 12 points better, and at half time I was thinking, Clare have a bit of a breeze here. They're not out of the game. There's a load of their big names haven't delivered. Either it's going to be like the 2022 semi-final where Kilkenny just kick on a little bit and keep my arm's length, or it's going to be like last year where Clare fight back, and Clare fought back, and Kilkenny couldn't get the ball over the Clare half-back line in the second half. And Sherwatt didn't score from 56, 57 minute onwards, which is unforgivable in a big game. To me, that game was won and lost in the first half from a Kilkenny point of view, but huge credit to Clare. So many things were not going well in the first half. You brought it up on the show on Thursday. What's that? The 4th terrible first half in a row that they've had in Croke Park.
Yeah.
And they still managed to get the win. And a lot of the big names, a lot of the elder statesmen really stood up in those final minutes when it matters most.
In a way that they hadn't done so in the first half. And there was a key period of time from the 10th minute to the 14th minute when Kilkenny had 3 fives worth of chances. Now, one of them was like a save from Cian Kenny, but then there was a follow-up from Adrian Mullen. So now, if we count them as 2 scoring opportunities, which I will do for this, they got 3 points out of 3 fives worth of opportunities. And it's that sort of stuff that allows Clare to stay in the game. And then also, coming up to half-time, Clare had just brought it back to within 5 points with Aidan McCarthy's free, and he was brilliant on the frees. Conor Cleary had a shot from 70 yards, and it was yet another defender in the first half. Sure,
Oh,
Dermot
stop.
Ryan and David McInerney with shots from 100 yards, and
I was
McInerney.
just like, get the ball to your shooters. Just give the ball to your shooters.
Yeah, and like so, their backs were taking on shots from 100 yards, and you're like, same old Clare. And I was beside Niall McIntyre, another journalist, and I kept going, textbook Clare, textbook Clare. It's between the years they're losing this. Now they turned it around, of course, but before half time, after Kilkenny had that 5-point lead, and Clare had kind of come back into it a little bit, 1-8-6. Kilkenny's shot blocked. Dropped short by Mullen. Deegan blocked down Mullen. TJ scored a free, but then we had a missed goal chance. We had a wide from Deegan, and Ryan did score. So again, they had a big run of chances coming up to the break, and they just couldn't make good on it. And then you look at the final, what was it? I suppose 13 minutes plus change of the match. And they had 6 chances going down the stretch and didn't score a single one of them, and a couple of them were dropped short. And you're just like, they found a way to leave this behind them. I'm not sure how, but it's of their own making, Kilkenny here.
Oh, big time, yeah. I would say, like, Clare obviously played their part, but like Kilkenny would be kicking themselves. It was no point any different. They showed up big time in the first half. It was a no-show in the second half. Like John Donnelly clipped their last point, I think, but like there was no. Like the 5-6 lads that were like ravaging Clare lads in the first half, that was nowhere to be seen in the second half. There was Clare defenders able to plant the feet and give decent ball into the forwards in the second half. I couldn't believe what I was watching from a Kilkenny point of view, to be honest with you. It was like that can't be a fitness issue, surely, you'd imagine. But like they looked out on their feet in the last 15-20 minutes.
Oh, it was some stuff. I can't believe you used the term that they were ravaging them for a hurling match.
It's when you're on the spot, it's funny what words come out.
Yeah. People just think you'd nearly have that planned beforehand, but God knows we didn't. I'll go through some of the comments here. Porter says, have to hand it to Clare, massive pressure on Saturday. Kilkenny are just a first half team, I'd argue. Plenty of evidence to support it. 21 points shipped in last year's final. 215 scored then, and 216 at the weekend. Not good enough. That's an interesting point, isn't it? We said Clare are the first half team, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just a fair point. Like Kenny had, you'd say they're maybe a 45-minute team even, because they had Limerick on the ropes big time in last year's All-Ireland final, and then faded badly out of it. The contrast between the first half and the second half, just even in terms of what Kilkenny were, not even like look at all the chances Kilkenny created in the first half. It was open season. They were going down the middle at different stages. Mikey Carey opened up the whole heart of the Clare defence, and there was bodies everywhere and lads backing each other up. And I don't know whether it was juicing the legs or what, but they didn't have anything. They didn't have much left in the second half. And they're like, if you'd said beforehand that Adrian Mullen would have been subbed off, and like, fairness to Adam Hogan, outside of the goal, like Adam Hogan broke Owen Cody on Saturday. Like even the fact that Owen Cody won a free and was that annoyed with Hogan that he went back and pushed him and gave away the free will show you like he must have been in his head. That was an amazing goal that Cody got, but Hogan had the measure of that battle all ends up. And he, like, when's the last time we had an outstanding, like a cornerback that lifts a crowd like that? Him winning a free or him doing anything just seems to be it's nearly worth a score almost. And I don't really recall that from any other cornerback. The only other one I could compare it to is his manager, who was at number 3 and the famous red helmet had come out, but he lifts everybody when he gets on the ball.
Yeah, and he's like an annoying little ferret. You know, you'd hate to be marked by him. And I say this obviously as a compliment, like he's been fantastic. But again,
Eddie Brennan called him a git this morning.
Yeah, but like refs at some stage are going to cop on to the constant diving. They are going to cop onto it. And like I'm saying that, but complimenting them at the same time. So let's not have the massive freak out about it.
I wouldn't call it a dive now.
He's inducing freeze.
Inducing, beautiful. I wouldn't say he's diving, but he's buying freeze.
No, I would say he's going,
what's a dive?
Going in front of a lad, stopping and then flopping on the ground. I mean, cutting across the guy. He's making sure he's manufacturing a free for something that the opposition has not done. Just cutting across the lad, getting the arm in under the hurley, all this kind of stuff. That he's not the only player that's ever done it. And I'm saying he's class, but we can't ignore that.
I don't think he's diving to the ground, though. I think the use of the word dive is fundamentally wrong. But
no, it's not. Okay, very end of the Munster final last year, there's a ruck, Tony Kelly's already been barred, should have had a free, but then Hogan gets the ball and he just dives into a group of players, doesn't get the free. That was an absolute dive.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that last Saturday. I don't recall him flopping to the ground at any
No,
stage
but I
last
said
Saturday.
he has to stop it because he'll get caught someday. And I do think he went down under minimal contact at times. But anyway, look, let's not focus too much on that because he had an exceptional game, but I can't but mention that. Yeah.
Go on. Move on.
Look, I'll just bring up the pitch map again. Is there any other battle there that you think was huge in this game between Kilkenny and Cork?
Between Kilkenny and...
between Limerick and Cork, sorry.
Yeah, listen, Will O'Donoghue has been the enforcer for Limerick for God knows how long, and he was put on the back foot from the very, very start by Darragh Fitzgibbon yesterday. And he wasn't able to because he was minding Fitzgibbon, he wasn't able to protect like he normally would protect as well. That was a huge one. Like, Cork won all the big battles. And in fairness, it's mad. Like, Cork stumbled upon this Rob Downey at 6, and it is just working beautifully. Like, even in their forwards would get most of the credit. In the last 10-15 minutes, like, he just wasn't for bending, and his brother behind him wasn't for bending either as well. And even slipping Joyce back into wing back, might not hurl a load of ball yesterday, totally kept Hegarty out of the game. And even I think he had Hegarty a bit spooked even for the goal chance that he did get, just because he'd been so good on him before that. Like, Cork won all those big battles. I wouldn't have seen probably Tim O'Mahony midfield, and he probably he mightn't have been massively influential, but I thought he was an important kind of player in the middle of the field as well.
Yeah, I thought he was good. I thought Mark Coleman was a player that Limerick went after from the get-go with puckouts, whether it was Tom Morrissey, Cathal O'Neill, Shane O'Brien came in. A lot of frees were won off him. A lot of scores were got down his route, but he still actually contributed very well. But this was something we kind of knew coming into the game, that Cork were going to go after him in the game, throughout this game in the air, and we'd said it on Thursday's show.
Yeah, no, I thought Coleman did well considering now, and he came up trumps at the end. I thought that was a mad scenario at the end, though, where Cork were 2 up and Hoggy is pulled off with a free from 100 yards. And I'm like, what? Oh, I can't believe this. Like,
well, it was too late, because I asked Pat Ryan as well. Or sorry, Pat Ryan was asked by somebody else. Yeah, it was too late. Yeah, it was strange. You're there, Asher Dalton. Oh, sure, Dalton's gone off as well. Like,
yeah, it was a mad one because, like, obviously Coleman had a go at a trap shot. Imagine Limerick had got a goal up the other end. It's amazing the things that are less in vogue to talk about the day after, just based on the result. Like, but that people would have been going mad if Cork had lost the game. But yeah, in fairness, like, look at the Cork forward line. Alan Connolly probably edged his back, let's say, with Dan Morrissey, who I thought was probably Limerick's best back, actually. I thought he was solid considering the pressure was coming in. Finn was under pressure. Casey was under pressure. Burns outside of the second quarter was under pressure. Hannon was under pressure. And Hayes was kept out of the game. So, like, the Cork forwards playing orthodox enough and mostly playing 6 up top, whatever they possibly could, they got the strong arm on the Limerick defence. And and Patrick Collins as well, who we haven't mentioned. How quick were the puckouts? Puckouts are so quick, particularly from a wide ball. People were giving out down the park the night in May that the ball boys had the balls flying back into him straight away, and you wouldn't get that sort of leeway in Croke Park. But Cathal O'Neill hit a wide in I think it was the 45th minute. And the quick puck out to Dalton over the bar. O'Neill had another wide, and it was another quick puck out. Like, he was bang, 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 and of course he pulled off a couple of unbelievable saves as well. Brilliant. Like, he came of age, I would say, yesterday too. We knew he was good, but he was instrumental yesterday.
He was actually, and the amount of scores that Cork got that punished Limerick. So whether it was blocking down a Limerick player, or, like, for example, Hegarty was blocked down by Tim O'Mahony in the 41st minute. And then Kieran Joyce won a free straight away, which Dalton smacked over the bar. A couple of minutes later, Cathal O'Neill was off balance, being chased down by 3 players. I think you mentioned this one a second ago. And then straight away out to Dalton. Then that double goal chance with Hegarty, which was blocked. And then the brilliant hook by Joyce on Galan. Straight up the other end. Dalton standing on his own, throws it up, and the big, massive wind-up. It's like he's cutting briars or scything down some corn or something like that. Just unbelievable smack of a ball.
It's like that one Cyril said about Pat Delaney. He was up centre forward for Offaly, and Michael Coleman went in centre back, and the two of them were swinging him. It was like 2 councilmen cutting briars, basically. But Dalton has some smack of a ball. Shano, that I know Galan was falling. that hook by Kieran Joyce is out of this world. That is so difficult to do. You know, me hooking you with a straight arm when you're swinging like orthodox. Okay, if I get that, that's good. That's deadly. Like, but to be able to hook a fella on the ground for a ground stroke, sure. When would you practice that? Like, really, that's just something that he would have maybe even been doing as a young fella. That's the best hook I have seen since Brian Whelan made a ghost hook in the '95 All Ireland when he hooked and he wasn't even in the picture. When I think it was, I forget who was swinging at the
ghost
end.
hook.
Yeah, a ghost hook. He wasn't in the picture. He wasn't in the picture, but he got the toe of his hurl in. It was absolutely phenomenal. And it was all these tiny little margins that Cork just won all those little battles, and you have to win them against Limerick. And credit to Limerick, Shane. Like, how do you bring Cork down the stretch? How do you nearly win the game? They would have leveled the game had Shane O'Brien's effort and Aidan O'Connor's effort went over the bar. Like, and they'd no right to in many instances. And that's just how good of a team that they are. But it was Cork's day and they deserved it. It was a phenomenal performance. They, you know, the hype that they had built from their own performance in the park, by God, did they live up to it in spades yesterday.
Yeah, they're going to be unbearable if they win this All Ireland.
I was only thinking, Shane, yesterday, like I was kind of thinking, jeez, probably Stapleton's two teams he hates most in the final, Cork and Clare. And then I'm kind of thinking, jeez, no, sure, be Cork. It was a no-lose. It was a no-win either. If Kilkenny were in the final, you despise them as well. If it was Limerick in the final, you're perceived to hate them the most of any team. So it was a real no-win scenario.
Which is funny. Like, if you were to give me the option of Kilkenny, Cork, and Limerick, who would I accept most readily to win the All Ireland? It'd be Limerick.
Yeah.
So, and like, it's hilarious that Limerick supporters seem to think I have it in for them. Not at all.
Yeah.
I have it in for Kilkenny and Cork, the traditional rivals, but not in a nasty way. Not in a nasty way. Tin Tuna says Kilkenny 06-15, greatest team ever, but Limerick top 5 at least. Pádraig Gill says Tin Tuna, a great tip team. They lost the 5 in a row to a poor tip team that went on and beat by 18 points in 2012.
I love how Tipper have somehow been wangled into the conversation there. Fair play to Pádraig.
Yeah, Pao K says that wasn't the same Kilkenny team to win those 8 All-Irelands, so completely different team by the end of it. This Limerick team has stayed the same 15 best ever. And actually, looking at the programme afterwards, I was like, I think it's 12 of the team that played in the All-Ireland final in 2018 that we're still playing here. And you're wondering, is there an element of father time catching up a little bit? Now, I will sort of put the parentheses around this by saying I think that Limerick are favourites to win the All-Ireland next year. So I'm not saying they're finished or anything like that. But there is going to have to be a slight regeneration. Like, Cathal O'Neill has obviously forced his way into the team now. Peter Casey, you would hope, will be back fit and firing next year. Barry Nash will be back in the mix. And John Kiley said if the game was on next week, he probably would have been able to play him. Wow. Darragh O'Donovan will probably come back. But he did say about Nash that, like, we could have thrown him out there. But, like, if his hamstring explodes on him, and they've had some bad injuries in the last couple of years, different players, maybe they didn't want to risk him. But they were like, I can't do that. And obviously, you know, Shane O'Brien is here. Adam English is here. Donncha O'Dowd has had game time. Aidan O'Connor has been trusted. So a lot of these players, even going back to the park earlier in the year, they've had chances. So is father time catching up a little bit? Can we say that while also saying we think that they're going to continue to be the champions in the future or certainly contenders?
Sure, listen, had Father Time cope with the Dublin footballers last year, had Father Time cope with with Kerry in 84 and 85? Do you know what I mean? Once they were beaten in 82. So you can say that, but like, how hungry will they be now for next year? It's a different kind of the last time they were beaten in a knockout game, they went and won the next 4 All-Irelands. I'm not saying they'll win the next 4 All-Irelands, but if you were to hazard a guess, I put up a poll. I was slightly surprised with the answers, to be honest with you. You know, will this Limerick crop win another All-Ireland? Yes, 1. Yes, 2 or more, or no. What would your answer be?
I'd say they'll probably win 2 more.
Yeah, I'm one or 2, but I'd be very surprised if they don't bounce back to win another one. Like, of that team, to me, Declan Hannon is the only one that potentially may not be around of guaranteed starters. But there's one happy Cork man this morning. John, how are you?
I'm not from Cork, Michael.
Well, you're a Cork resident then, John. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm in Cork 50 years, Michael.
Boy, Jesus, John, I thought now you just take it and you'd say, I've been living in Cork 50 years. Fair play to you.
You're dead right. You're dead right. Like,
no,
if someone...
I met Bishop Buckley years ago, and he said to me, he said, John, he said, there are two types of people in this world. He said, Cork people and people who think they're from Cork. I'm 50. I came to college in 1974. They never let me say that I'm a Cork man. I'm from Wexford originally. That's it. And you know what I mean? My son and daughter are from Cork, and my wife, and they're Cork people. I'm not. I'm sorry. John,
paint a picture for us. Watching the game yesterday, where were you? What was your viewpoint? Who were you with?
Unfortunately, I had prior commitments. I had made prior commitments. I was watching the match here with my wife on the telly. So, look, it's. I said this in 2018. It's a sea of red. Yesterday, it's a sea of red. Today, it'll be a sea of red for the next 2 weeks of emotion. And hopefully, Cork will turn it over in 2 weeks' time and beat Clare. And end the drought of the 19 years. So it's hugely important, really. But it'll be red here for 2 weeks. And I think, in fairness, going back to the Limerick match in Páirc Keeve 2 weeks ago, or in the Munster Championship, I think the emotion came out in Cork people that day, and I think that emotion will help Cork going forward as much as it wasn't there against Offaly and against Dublin, but it was there yesterday, where you had 82,500 people yesterday at the match, and I think that's it's a tribute to Cork and Limerick for putting on a spectacle yesterday. Fantastic occasion.
Just on that, John, like they're ready for an All-Ireland final after yesterday, like, and all the hype, and after the park, like they're totally ready for what's going to come with it, with the All-Ireland final, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they're. But as I said, Michael, the hype that was there in Páirc Keeve that Saturday night against Limerick, like, it overflowed into the park. It spilt out. It was all red. There was, 40,000 people on the pitch, so there was a pure emotion. And I think that lifted the team. And then, they went on then and went in the back door against Offaly and against Dublin. And now you could see that yesterday, right from the word go, you could say the Cork tore into Limerick right from the word go. And bar Limerick coming back, the last 10 minutes of the first half, they got 6-7 points in a row to go 2 up at half time. But, when they went into the dressing room, came out then and tore into Limerick, and went that few points ahead then at the start of the second half. There was 11 points in 10 minutes, I think. You know what I mean? It showed fabulous character. And I think that's synonymous with the younger fellas now, like that Barrett and those, Connolly, Brian Hayes. They don't have any fear really of anybody, because they're young. They've been successful at minor under 21, so they have no baggage on their backs from before. And then they were supplemented then by Seamus. Seamus was outstanding yesterday, and Dalton played his part as well. So, and Fitzy. So you had the younger. I think those three were critical: Barrett, Connolly, and Brian. Brian was excellent yesterday.
Can you talk to us about Brian? Because I was asking Pat Ryan about his performance in Connolly, because they're both kind of quiet against certainly Dublin, and I know Connolly had been sick. But he was saying about Hayes and how good he is, and he had that St. Finbarr's sort of, well, he didn't say it straight out, but confidence or cockiness or whatever. Could you tell us a bit about him?
Brian is a lovely, lovely, lovely young fella. He's so easygoing, mild-mannered. But Paddy Hayes is his dad, and I played club football with the Bars with Paddy. Paddy played football with Cork. His mother is Valerie Cunningham, Ger's sister. So there's great breeding there. And he's a fabulous young fella, a bit laid back, like, casual, things like that. But, I suppose it was a great achievement to get him playing hurling in the first place, as distinct from playing football, because he's a very good footballer as well. So he's a dual Bars player. But, Paddy his father was very laid back as well, and his mother's a lovely person. So there's fantastic character in that young fella. But what I like about him is that when he gets the ball, he turns and goes. And you have three of those there, Barrett, Connolly and Brian. They tend to get the ball and tend to turn and go and offload and either score themselves. Like, you know what I mean? So I think it takes the weight off Hoggy. And if you look at Hoggy yesterday, he got a point by just standing on the side and the ball was played back to him. But the three boys are really tearing into it. But Hayes is pure Bars blood, like, and really, really outstanding character of a young fella.
Michael.
Yeah, John, just like all the big battles were won by Cork yesterday. Realistically, you were in the park, I think it was about 6 weeks ago. Did you expect him to go and do something similar again, or were you expecting different tactics? Like, it was basically a carbon copy of what we saw in the park.
Yeah, but they showed that day against Limerick in the park here how to beat Limerick, and I think Pat just twisted. He just moved it on. Like Dalton came out from the half forward position and came out into midfield, and really kind of tried to pull out Hayes out, and you know what I mean. It left a hole at the back there, and then Patrick was knocking the balls. The puckouts were landing down on top where Cork were turning. The half forward line were turning and attacking Limerick then on that bit. But I think the biggest point, Michael, was the injury to Joyce, and that goes back 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, and Pat Ryan made the decision to put Robert Downey as centre back. And I think it's Downey's positioning at centre back has really, I suppose, lifted Cork, because he has been excellent, and he was excellent yesterday there. That point he got going up the field was super. And I think he's commanded the centre for Cork. If you go back 20 years ago, like where Curran was there, or Johnny Crowley was there in the 80s, like so. It really came about because Joyce was injured, and then he put Downey in there, and then where do we put Joyce? Joyce has gone in wing back, and probably Tim O'Mahony suffered a bit yesterday because of Joyce going to wing back. Tim is probably a better wing back than midfielder, but then Tim was in with Fitzy there as a holding midfielder, which allowed Fitzy then to move on. So I think all those lessons were learned from 6 weeks ago in the park, and I think Cork, Cork exploited them. But I wouldn't say every position was all Cork yesterday. Galan got 6 or 7 points in play as well. Like that would be a worry for me in that context. And I think Cork will look at that and need to look at that. But I think they'll also look at their forwards and compare the Cork forwards with the Kilkenny forwards on Saturday. Like Kilkenny had a few goal chances, like, which is very un-Kilkenny. Like, if you go back a few years, you had Eddie Brennan and Shefflin and those, they were always getting goals, Taggy and those. So, I think there's an awful lot to be learned from Cork on Sunday. There's an awful lot to be learned by Cork from Saturday. And the same with Clare as well. Clare have a lot to learn from Sunday's game and how to exploit Cork and vice versa.
Do you think in any way, like when you go back to 2018 and the team that you would have come up against, that Limerick team, that 12 of those starters still started again, is there an element of having gone through so many wars that it does take a little something out of them? And while they were still absolutely exceptional, that maybe not every player is at the same level that they once were?
Yeah, but you go back to 18, they had just come out of 2017 under-21 All-Ireland. So, what I mean? If you look at that under-21 All-Ireland team that Limerick had, Cian Lynch, Kyle Hayes, all those, they were fresh as daisies in 2018 when they beat us in the semi-final. Now that they've 6 years of hard labour, hard work, super success in terms of winning 4 All-Irelands, but really draining it out of you. And, they're going to the well again, and they're looking for more and more. And if you look at the history books of 4 in a row, it's only really the Dublin footballers have stepped up, and that was probably got to do with the size of their panel. And you were stretched yesterday, and a few of the Limerick boys were cut out, because, they went to the well a few times. But I don't think Limerick really weren't at the peak of their prowess this year at all. Somebody said yesterday that Dermot Burns had only scored 9 out of 24 frees, I think, or those little cracks there, and fellas being injured and 1 or 2 other little things coming, and it just ebbs away, like, and just cuts into the flesh, really, like, and that Limerick weren't the power that they were in 2018, but that's not to take away from yesterday with Pat. I think Cork were just all over the field. They were, I hate using the words like up for it or things like that. You're always up for it, but they really showed a freshness yesterday, and the pace of those Cork forwards at times is crazy, like, and their skill and their level of hurling is super.
The way to win it as well, though, John, like, you were on top in the first quarter, and it looked like you were going to kind of kick on. Then all of a sudden, it looks like the tide is turned, and like most of the conversation in the press box at half time is, Limerick have a good bit of the heavy lifting done here. You know, third quarter surge incoming, and the Cork boys come out and outscored them 13 points to 5 in the third quarter. 13 scores from 15 shots. First 10 shots, 10 points in a row. Like, it was phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, but that third quarter has been Kilkenny's greatest quarter. That has been Limerick's. You know, when you get back into the dressing room, you sit down and you say, look, lads, you know, we need a small bit of composure now. We need to lift ourselves and we need to put this team away. I was listening to Radio Kilkenny on Saturday. Taggy Fogarty was on with Michael Walsh in KCLR, and you know, Michael Welsh said to Taggy, he says, what do you think? And he said, Jesus, they're only 2 goals ahead. They're not putting Clare away, and they need to put them away before Clare come back at them in the last 5 or 10 minutes. So I think Cork really drove on in that, you know, first 10-15 minutes of the second half, and then held on then. And like, I even looked at my watch, and you know, I was saying like 6 points up with 10 minutes to go. Where did I see that before? Like, do you know what I mean? But that was character then. Like, and I think, you know, the save that Patrick made from Garrod Hegarty, and then the ball broke and it was clear Dalton was 100 yards out in the sideline. Like, and fair dues to him. Like, do you know what I mean? He put the ball over the bar from 100 yards out. Like, that was the crowd got up on their feet. Like, and you know, the roar was there at that stage. Like, and I think, you know, some days, and we all have glory days, and everything goes over the bar. Some days they don't. But Limerick, Michael, with 5 minutes to go, whatever it was, like Shane O'Brien and O'Connor, they had 2 front of the goal and they put the ball wide. And I was kind of saying to myself, like, where's Graham Mulcahy? Like, at that stage where you probably need a real head on the shoulders then at that stage, like, for composure. And the one Shane O'Brien put wide, Flanagan was inside him, probably in his all space on his own, you know what I mean? But like, look, that was it really, you know.
Yeah. Do you remember a couple of years ago, John, we were talking about Cork, and you had made about them coming up a little bit short in recent years, and you had made some comment about in tight games ever since the strike era, and maybe there was multiple factors, but that they weren't winning tight games. And a couple of times last year in the league, you know, Pat Ryan's first year, they had the Wexford game really stood out because they came back and they won a real tight one at the end. This was obviously a tight game.
Yeah, but that's the character, Shane. I think
what's changed?
I think the freshness of Hayes, Barrett, and Connolly. Connolly has been injured, Shane, for a while, and you know he's Blackrock through and through. He's really good club player with Blackrock, and like my good friend Paddy Hayes, the Blackrock doctor, always says like Connolly is outstanding because why? He puts the head down and he goes for goals, and I think it's that freshness with Barrett, Connolly, and with Brian. You know, okay, you Seamus and Hoggy are around a long time, but they're 3 forwards, and it's the momentum they go with, and they really go with pace and speed. They will take you on, and you know you could see that every time. The minute they got the ball, even for Brian's disallowed goal, like I can't remember who hand passed it to him or whatever, but you know they go for goals, Shane. So there's a freshness there in that. You know what I mean? And Pat wasn't afraid then. He brought on Ethan Toomey. They brought on Padraig Power. No, Padraig Power's only on for a minute. But, you know, they're young fellas. But they've come out of the under-20 All-Ireland, Shane, as well. You know, they've won 3 out of the last 4 under-20 All-Irelands. So the talent is there. I think it's fitting that young talent then with the older talent of Seamus and Hoggy. But Dalton is a little bit older than the other 3 young lads there, you know what I mean? So, and you know, Fitzy coming good in midfield, and then, but I think Owen Downey going for, but I think Robert Downey, you know, probably will be hurler of the year if he plays really well now on Sunday or on the All-Ireland final, you know.
Adding his brother into the team has been a big boost as well. Like, he's, you know, fullback has often been thought of as that problem position for Cork, John, and he's been excellent.
Yeah, no, he has, but they're 2 Glen Rovers men, you know what I mean? And Glen Rovers have this habit of producing Cork players, you know, outstanding Cork players like Tomas Mull, you know, really, really outstanding players. Like, and as I've previously eulogised Robert, but Owen has come in then at fullback, solved that problem. okay, like Damien Cahalane was there, and Damien has given great service to Cork, but there was always a kind of a question mark over Damien's just hurling, whatever. But like Downey has come in and really solidified that, and Sean and Leary then in the two cornerback positions. But I would still be worried a small bit about Gallen and Flanagan getting the scores that they got yesterday. We just need to tighten up there in the full back line and really tighten that up. I think that is critical because, if you see Shane O'Donnell, you see Peter Duggan, you see Shane O'Donnell, Peter Duggan. Taylor came on Sunday and hasn't hurled for a while. So, they're going to take it on against Cork as well with speed and that.
Michael, if you were told that at the start of the year that Robbie O'Flynn would come in for barely any time and Cork would still make it to an All-Ireland final, I thought he was such a key part, and now we can barely get in, so it shows the depth they have.
Yeah, I would have said he's potentially one of Cork's most influential forwards, and that's just other lads have stepped up, other lads have brought the energy when he was out injured, and it's what a luxury it is to have to bring somebody like that in. Like, he is still a game changer, and he could be the winner of the All-Ireland final yet off the bench, but it just certain mad things have happened this year, lads. There's several different scenarios happened that could have conspired with Cork not being in the championship anymore. If Tip hadn't got got a goal and a point against Waterford, Cork wouldn't be in the championship. If Cork hadn't beaten Limerick down in the park, they wouldn't be in the championship. If that 65 call hadn't been given between Clare and Waterford and Mark Rogers hadn't scored it, Cork wouldn't be in the championship. So, and if Kieran Joyce hadn't been injured, Robert Downey wouldn't be centre back and going for hurler of the year in John's view. So I don't know. Maybe their name is on the trophy.
No, you must have a bit of luck, Michael.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And luck plays a little part in it. And if you go back to the park when Limerick were up 2 points with 2 minutes to go, you'd say, look, they're home and dry. Kingston comes on, gets taken down, penalty, Hoggy buries it, and Cork win by 2. Small bit of luck there. Then the umpire waved the ball wide. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but he waved the ball wide, and that let Cork in as well. And a small bit of luck then, as I said there, look, I have great time for Downey, but, small bit of luck there. He went in there and it worked. And, it worked again yesterday. And you get the breaks, Michael, and sometimes we don't get the breaks. Jesus, I go back to my own 18, and Robbie and coming in and Seamus catching the ball and whatever, and Quaid making the save then. It could have been us instead of Limerick, you know what I mean? So you do need you need a break, and I think Cork have got those little breaks this year, and they deserve them.
And John, then just look, it wasn't Patrick Horgan's day, and he's over the 700-point mark. He's 2 behind TJ in the all-time scoring list. I just wonder, coming into this game, seeing Kilkenny go out, would it play in his mind the whole chance or the whole notion of, right, I'm 2 games away, big stage, Croke Park, maybe even slightly the scoring record. Did the day get to him just a little bit? And this is a guy who's done it so many times.
That would not have been in Hoggy's head. There's no, the old phrase, there's no I in team, there's no individual. And Hoggy certainly wasn't looking at, if I get 5 points, I'll go ahead of TJ or anything like that. You know what I mean? That wasn't in Hoggy's mind. Hoggy is not like that. Hoggy wants to do everything that's right for Cork hurling, not for himself individually. Hoggy wants the other 14 fellas so that Hoggy can end his career with an All-Ireland medal. Being top scorer is irrelevant, really. It's got nothing to do with it. But
did the day get to him at all, do you think? Is that because he just wasn't quite himself?
No, he wasn't. He missed that short 3 in the 21, which he should have put over. But he got a couple of critical scores then, Shane, later on into the hill end. And just, he was there at the end of it and just tapped the ball over the bar. But the individual scoring thing had nothing to do with Hoggy's performance yesterday. And, it could have been sharper and that. But then, look, we were always depending on Hoggy to get 2-10, 3-4, 3-11, 15 points, whatever. And then it was the spread of scores from the 6 forwards and Fitzy. If you look at games and hurling games, you look at scoring, you'll always have the free taker getting a few scores, maybe 1 player, maybe 2 players, but never 6 players and 1 midfielder, and all contributing positively to the scoreboard. That's, as Michael said, there are 11 points in the first 10 minutes of the second half. But fantastic. Everything went over the bar. And, every forward contributed there yesterday.
Just on that, John, isn't that the dream scenario where loads of different lads can hurt you?
Yeah.
Like you can't go and mark one fella. Like they go and mark Brian Hayes the next day. Shane Barrett's still in unreal form. Connolly's still in unreal form. Harndy's still in unreal form. That's what you want.
Yeah, and I think I was on with you before, and I said, was it Connolly shouldn't have been scoring those, 2 games in a row. He got 3 goals. I said, wait those third. Make sure you get those 3 goals in the championship, not in league games. You know what I mean? But who are you going to mark the next time? But the opposite is true then, Michael. Of Shane O'Donnell needs to be picked up. Peter Duggan needs to be picked up. Taylor needs. Aaron Shanahan might have a game. Might start. So. Cork will have to get their matchups right. They got their matchups right yesterday. Of course, if you win, you get matchups right. But Cork have got to get. Who's going to mark Shane O'Donnell, because Shane O'Donnell is the key forward there for Clare, along with Duggan and.
Well, Sean O'Donoghue won't be getting sent off, you'd imagine, the next time, because how crucial was that in the Munster clash?
I must praise Thomas Welsh yesterday. I great time for Thomas as a referee. I think he throws it in, lets it flow. A bit like Cathal McAllister here before.
And, the GOAT. Cathal McAllister is the GOAT, John. That man was a cornerback's dream. A cornerback's dream. But you can do what you like.
But it added to the spectacle yesterday.
Oh yeah, big time.
The only thing I was frustrated with was there was 2 or 3 minutes of the stoppage over on the far side, the Cusack stand side with the sideline. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
But that was the only kind of thing. But you never even saw the referee really, you know what I mean? And it's extremely difficult. There was a handball for Brian Hayes' goal, and God help we don't bring in the VAR or anything like that in hurling, because it's ruined soccer and it's ruined rugby. You know what I mean? I was watching the rugby on Saturday, and he's going up and he's talking for 3 minutes and he's looking at himself up on the big screen and things like that. Like, Jesus, don't bring VAR and don't ask for VAR in hurling. Just get the right calls right, and that's it. Well,
I think we're just going to have to live with the odd mistake. I agree with you. I wouldn't want VAR here.
Game flowing, Shane.
Yeah.
And he let it flow yesterday, and there wasn't a dirty stroke in it, and it was fantastic.
The thing about the throwing is the thing that annoys people about the throwing is how many throws were there yesterday, and then you focus on 1 or 2 and blow them. And the Hayes one could have been big now. Luckily enough, it wasn't. But
Yeah. But look. Are they throws or not throws? Look, the game was a spectacle yesterday. The game was one of the best hurling games. The semi-finals throw up those. Look, you're going to have the odd decision made which goes against you. We know that. We all know that in life. You know what I mean? But let the game flow. Let the game flow. There's 82,500 people there yesterday. And the All-Ireland semi-final hurling weekend has become, synonymous with outstanding hurling. And that's what we want to see.
What did you make of the first game between Kilkenny and Clare on Saturday?
It was the most un-Kilkenny-like hurling I've seen in a while.
What do you mean by
that? Look, I came up against Kilkenny in 07-08 when I was involved with Wexford, and Eddie Brennan, Shefflin, and those that were going for goals. They missed 3 goals, I think, on Eva Quilligan on Saturday early on, which they should have got. They didn't score for the last 15 minutes, which is most un-Kilkenny-like. TJ missed freeze. It wasn't, I don't know, maybe they were a bit flat or something, or maybe they thought they were just going to cruise in against Clare again into the All-Ireland final and that. And, it was flatter than Sunday. But look, Clare took their opportunity and drove on in the last 10 or 15 minutes, much the same as Cork as well. But look, it was un-Kilkenny that what I'm used to, and what we're all used to, that they just drive on and they hit a purple patch and they get 2-3, 2-4, something like that, and then they win the game. But they didn't score, Michael, or Shane, for the 15 minutes. That's not written in any Kilkenny coaching manual. You know what I mean? It's not.
It's probably becoming a bit more Kilkenny-like than they would like, though, because when you look at, obviously it was I would nearly call it a no-show in the second half. It was the same in the All-Ireland final in 23 for the last 25 minutes. It was the same against Waterford in the All-Ireland semi-final for the bulk of the second half. It was the same in the 2019 All-Ireland. So that's very, very worrying. And if if, like, I don't know, it looked like TJ was definitely hanging around in Croke Park a bit longer than he normally would yesterday. So there's a potential that could be his final action as well. And I'd say Conor Fogarty was hanging around too. So that might be the last we've seen of those two. So
he was carrying his child around. So maybe he was saying, you better hurry on and the two of us can go out and play there, you know. But like, look, TJ deserves great credit for what he has done for Kilkenny hurling. I think it's 7 or 8 All-Irelands, and you know, he's been a great servant to Kilkenny, and time waits for nobody. And unfortunately, you know, they weren't at the races really, you know, Kilkenny, like, you know, that Jesus, what I experienced against Wexford in 07, 08, like that's gone, like, you know, the Cody era, like of you know, and you could nearly say the Limerick era is gone now, because a lot of those guys have to be replaced. Like, you know, they're getting on and that, and they'll be older next year, and you know, Cork will be fresher. There'll be a new manager in Waterford. There'll be you know, I don't know what's happening up your way, Shane, in Tipperary, but who's coming in or who's not coming in or staying or whatever. But you know, there's still huge. Waterford will be coming. Austin is coming back for Waterford. So look, Munster Championship will be competitive again next year. I actually suggested to someone there should be home and away in the Munster Championship. You know, there should be home and away.
Hey, we could just bin the Leinster Championship, Michael. I'm joking.
Wasn't a great advertisement for it now over the weekend, now, to be fair.
Hey, and just as you mentioned Limerick there, and maybe turning over the team a small bit, John, do you think, like, we all know Declan Hannon and Cian Lynch, for example, will go down as two of the greatest players ever, but they don't look just themselves at the moment. And like, it's the miles on the clock you wonder about. Like, can they get back to 100%? I don't want to doubt them, but can they get back to where they were?
You look at Hannon and Cian, like, both of them have been injured, and you know, the injuries take time to heal. And you know, Hannon was kind of maybe pushed in there previously there into matches that he had to play because, you know, okay, Will O'Donoghue, I think, went in centre back and that, but he was injured, and the injuries and all those take their toll, and the you know, the competitiveness of the games, their training and everything drains you, and, you know, and they're going with my recollection since 2016-17, so probably 7-8 years of hard going, and getting to the top is difficult, but staying at the top is more difficult. It's more demanding of you. There's more demanded of you in terms of training, in terms of time, in terms of work, in terms of everything like that, family life and everything. That, you know, it just becomes 100%, you know, with the team, and that's really it. You know, but they'll have to rebuild somewhere. Like, they've great young talent coming on. You know, but they haven't been successful at underage, Shane, in the last couple of years. So that'll be a worry. You know what I mean?
And in terms of Clare, then, how good do you think this Clare team are?
You know, I think Brian Lohan is in his 5th year. They went out at the start of the year. They won the league and that. So that's a huge boost for them. And I think you could see that in the last 10 minutes against Kilkenny on Saturday. They know how to win. And I think that could be said of Cork on Saturday as well. That you know, I'm praising the younger fellas because they've won under 20 All-Irelands and they've no baggage in that, and they drove on. But Clare are a good side. They are a good side, and you know, Conlon will be centre back, and Cork will look to exploit speed on Conlon, I would imagine. No, Clare have good forwards. Shane O'Donnell has probably been the most exciting forward this year. You know, Taylor is there, Shanahan is there, Peter Duggan is there. You know what I mean? They can cause you problems, and you know, I would be going back if I was Clare and looking at 2013, seeing how we beat Cork and things like that, and looking at that. Tony Kelly will be midfield on Fitzy, so that'll be a straight shootout. So it'll look. I said last night, Michael or Shane, I said it's 50-50. It's 50-50, and it'll come down to character, and it'll come down to the small little bit of luck at times.
Michael, why do you think the likes of, like, Matthew Keown was actually winning a nice ball up in front, but he didn't get on the score sheet. Adrian Mullen didn't get on the score sheet. Owen Cody got an unbelievable goal, but otherwise had a very tough day against Adam Hogan, who was excellent. Why is it, you know, TJ got 1 point from play, and obviously Billy Ryan got 1 too, John Donnelly got 2, but like, the forwards just couldn't make that impact. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know, Shane. Like sometimes when you miss your first chance or you have a couple of early chances and you don't take them, your confidence is down. Even saw Hegarty with a couple of chances yesterday. He had an easy chance, missed it. Then all of a sudden he's not taking on the next chance. Mossy Cohen had a couple of good chances early doors, didn't take them. Confidence was probably a bit down. There was a man in his face as well, which didn't help. And Davy Mack seemed to follow Mullen nearly everywhere, and he really, really tied him up. Talking Mullen carrying a knock into that game, definitely didn't look himself. I can't remember the last time I've seen him blocked down in games. Like
Ling afterwards said he was fine, said there was no issue.
Really? Okay, yeah. It didn't look it now, to be fair, because that wasn't like, it wasn't a patch of the player that we saw in the Leinster final. But particularly in the second half, against that breeze, and the ball was kind of holding on the half forward line, just couldn't get any traction there at all. I know Conlon has had some criticism in recent weeks, but he was walking out with ball in that second half, walking out with ball. And all the Clare soldiers, Duggan, O'Donnell, Kelly, Conlon, McInerney, Cleary as well, all the great servants were the ones that were driving them forward in the last 20, 25 minutes. And I have to tip the cap to Aidan McCarthy. Like, to say a fella would have 100% strike rate from frees, when I don't know if any of the three of us on the show today thought he would even be playing or taking the frees. It's something else. And some of the frees he put over from the Cusack stand side, particularly the one to put them a point up, they were huge scores. And that's been an Achilles heel in semi-finals in recent years and in other games. If that's on point in the final again, you'd imagine they'd be right there.
But Kilkenny, Michael, got no test in the Leinster final.
Yeah.
And they went into an All-Ireland semi-final. Sometimes you can cover over cracks by not getting a test. And we saw that in football recently, where Dublin strolled into the All-Ireland quarter-final and met Galway. Galway had been tested by, forgive me now, by a few teams. Dublin had no test really as such. And you need to be tested. And I think that's what's standing also to Cork and to Clare, that they've been tested in games. Now, they've been tested by Limerick, but Limerick have exposed one or two problems. I think Kilkenny strolled through Leinster, lads were flying, were really motoring. And then they had 4 weeks to, I think, forgive me, they had 4 weeks from the Leinster final to yesterday.
It's 4, yeah.
Saturday. That's too long. You really need a test. You really need to be exposed. You need to find out where the cracks are, because the cracks appeared on Saturday and they weren't, as you said there a minute ago, the cracks were there on Saturday and they appeared.
I'd prefer to have all those questions asked you before you get to the big day. You'd like to have we struggled here against whoever. Whereas maybe everything was a bit kind of plain sailing or too rosy in the garden going into a big game.
You look down here. Pa Collins got an awful, whatever the right word is. People came after him about his displays early on, about his puck-outs and things like that were crazy and they were very poor. And then, so he's worked on those. And Pat Ryan and Donald O'Mahony and the lads have worked on it with Patrick. So we needed to get those puck-outs right. And Paz got those puck-outs right yesterday. But if he wasn't exposed to those, Michael, then, you know what I mean, that you're just papering over cracks. And I think those tough matches, that's probably where you have two Munster teams in an Ireland final. Why? The level of competition in the games in Munster this year has been crazy competition. And it identifies where your weaknesses are, and then you need to do something. And that goes back to my point with when Joyce was injured, Downey goes in centre back, and that improved Cork, I think, 5-10%.
John, Michael was bringing up Aidan McCarthy there, and remaining on the frees and how well he did, and he was exceptional on them. And we would have thought from the outside maybe Mark Rogers will take over the frees, and there's other options. From being a manager at inter-county level, you obviously see a couple of weeks training in between matches and whatever. If he struggled on the big stage, on the big day, do you then go back to training sessions and look at him and think, okay, he's back to nailing them again, I can see he's got his flow again? Or do you think, okay, we'll go with someone else who's previously done it on the big day? How do you even balance that?
Well, I never had a problem because Hoggy was the only free taker that I was used to in my 2 years involved. So I wasn't going to tell Hoggy what to do or what not to do, because he would be up in the glen on every night of the week practicing his frees. He was always practicing. So, but like, look, it's very difficult when you have to sum that up really in the circumstances that you come out of games, and if your free taker has missed, what do we do then? So you're going to have a free taking coach or somebody to help him taking frees. Look, he got his points on Saturday, but he has to do it now in the All-Ireland final. So you're kind of doubling the pressure on him. You know what I mean? So it's free taking is difficult.
Tony Kelly had a tough day for long spells, Michael, didn't he?
Yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting. The point I wanted to bring up earlier, there's a very fine line between loyalty and ruthlessness. So John Kiley would maybe receive some criticism for maybe looking at Hannon as long as he did. Brian Lohan was prime for criticism, yet again, prime for criticism, had Kelly not come good, and had a couple of other lads not come good as well. I'd say he laid it to them fairly hard and heavy at half-time. He said he could have made 6 or 7 substitutes. Now, he can only make 5, but he said he could have made 6 or 7. It was... it was SH1T or get off the pot for them with 45, 50 minutes gone.
He was loyal to the cornerback against Limerick in the Munster final last year, was it? Forgive me.
Keane Nolan, yeah.
And look, as a manager, you can't have knee-jerk reactions either. You know what I mean? You have to study it and say, right, if I take him off, who do I put in? He took David Fitzgerald off and, you know what I mean, freshened it up. And like even Hoggy was taken up now, it was only a minute or 2 minutes to go. Like, but then Cork suddenly didn't get a critical free, which would have put him 3 up. And Huggy's off the field and Dalton's off the field. Why did we do that? Like, so look,
yeah.
Look, Tony thundered into it and he had a couple of good scores and things like that. Like, but it'll be looser against Cork, I'll tell you that, around the middle of the field with him and Fitzy. I would imagine both of them will be marking each other and, be 5 points each.
Just on that, John's point as well. Excuse me now, I'm after losing my train of thought a small bit there. No, I'll go back, Shane. I had a point to make and it's gone.
Okay, now you've derailed me because I switched off.
Younger fellas didn't do things. It's only older fellas like me lose the train of thought.
Hey, John, when you have a baby around, you start forgetting all sorts of things. I had a photographic memory of matches I played 30 years ago, and it's all gone. I'm hoping it will come back at some stage.
I've 2, Michael. They're 38 and 35. Wait till they're that age,
Just actually a point I will bring up. Like, for Ryan Taylor to do what he did, lads, on Saturday, it was absolutely phenomenal. Not one bit of competitive game time in 12 months. He comes on the 50-minute mark and he completely turns the game, lads.
Right.
He just, and it's a real eye-opener to lads all around the country that maybe don't start games. He came in the 50th minute and he could have been man of the match. He came in and just did the simple things right, got on ball, scooped it along, passed it along to the next fella, but was just a buzzing around, a ball of energy. And for the hard work and the patience that he showed in the last 12 months, he deserved what he got on Saturday. Very interesting with 2 weeks between the final and the semi-final, whether he starts the final or not now. And the point I was going to make, that was a huge call taken off David Fitzgerald. One of the most informed hurlers in the country, definitely one of Clare's most informed players. But Lohan has got his fair share of criticism for what he hasn't done in games.
Yeah,
he rolled the dice big time on Saturday, and he trusted his players. And in fairness, Ian Galvin came on, turned the game. Ryan Taylor came on, turned the game. We all thought Aaron Chandler was going to start. Maybe Kilkenny thought that as well. They threw a bit of a curveball maybe with Aidan McCarthy, but you have to say he got all the calls right on Saturday.
Yeah.
And he's been criticised before for some calls he made, and we've questioned some calls he made, but he got them all right on Saturday.
But if you win, you're right, Michael. If you don't, you're wrong.
That's true.
Pat took Dalton off, and you could say, Jesus, why Dalton was doing very well in that space there, that left half forward position. He was doing really, really well. But then you're bringing in, as you said, their fresh legs. Kingston or Robbie O'Flynn were coming on, or Ethan Toomey, whoever it was, came on. You know what I mean? You have to. It's a 20-man game. That's what it is now. And those 5 fellas that come on as subs have to make an impact. That's a critical thing, Michael. I was watching the rugby on Saturday as well, and I see the Springboks brought on 6 forwards at the one time. They just removed the back row and the middle, or the front row and the back row. like that's bring them on. Now I know they're only challenge matches or friendly matches; they're not test matches really. But you have to depend on subs coming in to make an impact really. And you're 100% right there with Taylor and those.
I think key to that as well, lads, is that they know what's going on behind closed doors. They know that, okay, Kelly hasn't delivered the first 45 minutes, but he's obviously flying in training. Or they know Ryan Taylor is ready to go. Like, that's what, David Fitzgerald wasn't on form on that day. They knew they had somebody who was obviously flying in training or flying in games that they're playing, ready to go. So you have to trust I think you have to trust what you're seeing behind closed doors and what you're seeing in training every night of the week.
You're not sitting in Parky Keeve or in Cusack Park or in Limerick. You're not sitting in the stand watching training. You don't know what's going on in training. Tony Kelly could have been burning up Shanahan in midfield or whoever was midfield in training, or Fitzy or whatever could be burning up Tim O'Mahony in training. You don't see that. Nobody knows that. So what goes on between now and in the next 2 weeks, it's not going to be hell for leather hurling. It's going to be about character and about attitude and about mental toughness now.
That half back line of Clare's, like John Conlon, Diarmuid Ryan and David McInerney in particular, exceptional. Like, is that an area do you think that Clare will be able to get at? Sorry, Cork will be able to get at?
I think looking at the Cork 6 forwards, they'll go after the Clare 6 backs because Kilkenny got in, Shane, for goal opportunities. Now they didn't take them, and Quilligan made good saves. But the opposite is true of Cork. They got in a Pa made a couple of good saves as well. They're critical saves, like that Gillan slipped down the Hill 16 end, and you know what I mean. So Cork will go after. They're mobile, they're athletic. The forwards, especially the 3 young lads, they will go at Clare.
Yeah. Okay. And any final thoughts before we let you go, John? You've been great with your time, but
who wins the All Ireland, John?
Cork.
Yeah. Well, look, John, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and look, we'll hopefully chat to you again soon.
You upset my 9th hole on the golf course this morning. I was racing off the golf course.
How did you go anyway? Where were you playing?
I was down in Cove this morning with my good friend Ger Harrington. We had a lovely game of golf this morning with Des, and there was Des and I can't remember, Charlie. And I just played 9 holes, so I had to come off in the night to make the show.
Fair play.
To be on with you this morning, the two of you. So
did you keep it between the ditches, John?
I did actually. Look, I played golf before and I loved it. You know what I mean? And I'm retired now, and I've joined 2 clubs and I'm playing a bit of golf. And I've no handicap. I've no interest in handicaps or competitions. I just want to play golf and hit the ball, and that's it.
As my father says, like coming up to certain tournaments, maybe slightly cooking the books in terms of his handicap. I have the handicap to win this one.
No, I don't have a handicap. I don't want a handicap. I just want to hit the ball and have a bit of crack. And I've a few really, really good friends. Padraig O'Sullivan, John the Painter is another character. John the Taximan, and we play golf together, and it's fantastic. The crack is 90. You know what I mean?
This sounds like Only Fools and Horses. You have sunglasses on, and
but look, you can. It's really, really enjoyable. 9 holes. I'm down in Raffine Creek or in Raffine Creek here, just 5-10 minutes away from me, and Cove is 15 minutes, and I can do 9 holes and be back home in 2 hours. A round of golf is 4.5 hours, and the whole day is gone. Whereas 9 holes is gone. I do keep it in the.
Good man.
Thanks very much, John. We'll chat to you again soon, hopefully.
Oh, we'll see you in Croke Park for.
We will.
Cheers, John.
Okay, great to have John on as ever. Just wouldn't mind doing 9 holes myself a little bit later today.
Yeah, 9 holes is quite doable. A full round of golf is a fair. Now, if you're able to get the 5 hours or whatever, it is good to 5 hours. If you're able to afford it, it's brilliant. But 9 is nice and convenient.
I can't remember. Do you play, or have you played recently?
I just play a few classics during the summer. I haven't played one yet this year, actually. Probably will at some stage, I'd say. I'm still cack-handed, like I'm playing the wrong way. So I have to kind of line myself up to keep it between the ditches.
That's horrible.
Ah, yeah.
Who allowed that to happen?
To be honest with you, I kind of made a decision that whatever morsel of hurling ability I had left, I wasn't going to lose it because I changed to a golf grip that put me off or anything like that. So that was my theory.
That's funny that you say that. When I was a young lad, I used to play a heap of tennis. So there's a court, like a couple of Tarmac Adam courts down the park in Burris. Used to play it all the time. And you know the way you're spinning the ball so much.
Oh,
when
yeah.
When I was going out pucking ball then, it was just arcing off all the time. So tennis definitely had a massive impact on how I played hurling at that
You
stage.
couldn't help it. I swear. I would have played a lot of tennis as well. And you'd be scrambling to get the ball back on your forehand side. It would be a forehand slice back. And then I noticed I started slicing ball off my right hand side in hurling, like totally cutting across it. And it's just like real irrational. The ball has no rhyme or reason to where it's actually going then. I was decent enough at tennis. I gave it up for a couple of years, went back playing. And every time I hit topspin forehand, it hit the back fence. I swear to God, every time. So just playing dirty slice off both sides. But I was more of I was kind of like a Michael Chang job. I was just like, I'm going to get the ball back.
Keep the ball in forever.
Force you to make a mistake.
Yeah. I'd say most of our younger viewers have no idea who Michael Chang was. But the lad was a bit like an early day Djokovic in the sense that he'd just keep the play going on and on and on. And he'd have that iron will. Now, he wasn't winning too much. He was up near the top 10 or whatever, but he wasn't.
I think he won the US Open. He had the famous ad, "I am the wall." That was the ad. He was the wall. Like, you couldn't get past him. You've done a serious injustice to Djokovic there now. Djokovic can scramble, but by God, he can play winners off both sides as well.
Yeah, I just meant the iron will side of him. But come here, just back to Clare. Like, are we giving enough credit to like the full backline? And Adrian McGrath, I can see commented about it there, that they get an awful lot of stick. And Adam Hogan, like we've said it here, absolutely fantastic defender. Conor Cleary, he's been really good, really solid. Conor Lean, what a first season where, I think he was injured a lot underage in the last couple of years. He's had a fantastic season. And David McInerney what a performance. If you were told you'd be able to keep Adrian Mullen out of the game, you would feel like that you're going to have a right good chance to win this semi-final.
Yeah, you'd have to say as well, that was a matchup that Lohan and the boys got right too, because Dermot Ryan followed was a Cottle O'Neill in the Munster final, and it kind of took away his game. And I thought there was a potential maybe that Dermot Ryan would follow Mullen. They went with Davy Mack on Mullen, which some people would have questioned whether he'd be able to stay with him, but he definitely was able to stay with him. As regards Conor Cleary, there was a lot of lads kind of poo-pooing him after the Munster final. He's had two real good performance. Kept. Yeah. It's a verb. They've had, there was a lot of people kind of you got a bit of negative press after the Munster final. Brilliant on Lee Chin in the quarter final. I'd say solid the last day. And like Hogan was brilliant the other day. Hogan set the tone at different stages. Now I wonder what Cork will present him with. I know when I played cornerback, I loved that fast ball in. I love kind of going out and attacking a ground ball. It has probably been shown that Hogan doesn't like the high ball coming in as much because he's a smaller player. So I wonder how Cork will go at him. Like, obviously Brian Hayes would not be a good matchup for Hogan at all. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see who picks up who in that Cork full forward line. But yeah, I think both sets of forwards have a lot of questions that they can ask the opposition backs, and that's going to be fascinating. I saw a comment coming in there about praising the goalkeepers. My God, some of the saves that were pulled off over the weekend. Owen Murphy's save, absolutely outrageous, and that great James Crombie picture where you can see all the reactions from the crowd and who was stuck in the middle of it, only David Herity. And I went through all the facial expressions. And
Tipperary goalkeeper coach, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like you go through all the facial expressions, and like there's no two people reacting the same. It's fascinating. There's not a phone in sight as well, which is great to see. He pulled off that save. Like Quilligan pulled off a couple of outrageous saves. Would have been disappointed for the goal, but like caught a spade. He kept them in the game in the first half with a couple of class saves. Even that line ball going in, I know you'd say it would have been a soft one if it had went in, but he saw that like last second job, and that was nestling right in the corner. And fairness, Mikey Carey, if he put the ball anywhere else, it was a goal. But Quilligan got his body in the right place and really put his body on the line. And like Sir Collins pulled off a couple of deadly saves, Murphy as well. And like Sir Nicky Quaid's save from Hoggy at the end to give them a chance to win the game was brilliant too. It was probably the best. It was as good a weekend, a display of from goalkeepers as you will see. Some real like high points from all four.
And the hurling championship has been stinking off there for the last month or so. And I have to be honest, I wasn't blown away by the Clare Kilkenny game. And maybe part of it was because it was so poorly attended, certainly compared with the second one, that it never felt like it lifted off in there. I just kind of I was watching down Clare with their misfiring performance, doing a lot of silly stuff with the ball. And I was looking at Kilkenny missing chances that they should easily be taken. And it wasn't the greatest spectacle. But the upside is you're looking at teams now, Dublin sat off Kilkenny a little bit, and it was almost like they were sort of trying to be very tactically disciplined. We'll keep our matchup here, and nobody will overcommit and allow a pop pass and whatever. And they allowed Kilkenny to almost play in front of them. But unfortunately, then, the movement of the inside men and whatever really undone Dublin for a finish. But here we were looking at two games where it was just mano a mano all over the pitch. And we're in an era now where if you want to challenge the top teams, you absolutely have to push up. You can't not. And that's why Limerick and Cork especially. Cork knew there's no way to sort of back off and play a sweeper and be successful here. And Pat Ryan said it after the game, you have to be in their faces to give yourself a chance. And I think that's why the final is going to be spectacular.
Isn't that brilliant, though, that we're gone away from that other crack that was, that we're seeing games that were just not that particularly good on the eye. Now, kind of like a lot of the big kind of football teams are realising as well, we need to put up big scores. We need to get loads of scores on the board. We can contain to a certain extent, but we need to be gung-ho to a point and get big scores on the board. Cork and Clare would be two fairly fine examples of that as well. And you'd imagine it's going to be a fair shootout in the final. Like, the defenders will have their moments, but you'd imagine two teams are going to put up two pretty big scores in the final. And it's like it was the most unlikely final scenario of all the different pairings. If there was going to be an upset, I think most people thought that Clare were the most likely team to win. Maybe it'd be a Clare Limerick final. I don't think too many people predicted a Clare Cork final, and I remember being in as a supporter at the 2013 finals. Like, they're two brilliant games, and two seriously contrasting games, because Cork got 3 goals the first day and Clare got 25 points. Clare got 5 goals the second day, so it was two completely different games. And I think we're in for a cracker. And listen, no disrespect to Kilkenny, no disrespect to Limerick, it is always good to see new faces, fresh faces, because I'll put it to you this way: how hard are tickets going to be to get for the final? With due respect, the last couple of years they've been very, very easy to get, and I'll be straight with you, they've been very easy to get from the Kilkenny side, and a lot of them have been recirculating back. There won't be too many recirculating back from Clare or Cork, I can tell you that.
Hen's teeth will be plentiful compared with All Ireland final tickets. And there was something else I wanted to look at here, and part of the reason that I thought Clare did quite poorly in the first half is, so if you look at Kilkenny and they draw their backs out the field, and again, I know they didn't convert all their chances, but they play pretty much like this, and you can swap around the positions a small bit. Sorry, I'll get that out of the way. But they're really disciplined in keeping high up the pitch and doing their movement in here, as the likes of Limerick are. But I just felt that part of the reason that the ball would not stick up front for Clare was that as the ball was being worked, let's just say someone like Kelly has the ball out here. We'll just keep this red dot as the ball. That the lads who were inside, they were coming out too soon. And I looked at it time and time again, which meant that their men could come out with them as well. By the time that ball was being driven in, there was actually no space to collect it. And if it went in over the top, it was obviously goal side where all the defenders were, so they could easily collect the ball first. But I thought that was a huge issue throughout the first half. And certainly when you're in there, it was that bit more obvious. Again, I was beside Niall McIntyre and I kept saying to him, look at this, they're out too far. Again, there's nowhere to hit the ball to. So I think that's something they need to address from the get-go going into the final. And I wonder any of their supporters who were watching it, the likes of Adrian McGrath who's commenting there, is that something you would have also seen?
It's all to do with timing, Shano, isn't it? It's like, remember, it hasn't happened as much in recent years, but remember there for a couple of years where Quaid would take a puck out and Hegarty would just be, all of a sudden when the ball bounced, Hegarty would just be there. Do you remember that? It's all like, but he's making the run at the opportune time. Some of the Clare forwards the other day, they're actually robbing their own space. they're robbing their space, and when they're, even if they do receive the ball, it's congested. The time of the run is just coming a second or two too early. Probably maybe takes another turn or another fake inside. Either that, or it takes the ball coming in that split second quicker. But there's nothing worse. It's like being under a puck out. It's all about timing. If you're under the ball a second before it's landing, you're a sitting duck. If you're under the ball just as it's landing, you've all, particularly as a defender, you've all the momentum. Remember, like Big Dan under a high ball, pure timing. He was able to get in just as the ball was dropping. And that's what a lot of it is. And the Clare lads were just kind of robbing their own space at different stages in the first half. We probably haven't touched on it that much, but like O'Donnell was just so good. For a fella that only scored a point, O'Donnell was so good for Clare the other day in the second half. And I thought Liam Gordon did a very good job, but he should have let O'Donnell have the advantage that time he was going at Lawler, because Lawler was in big bother and he was on a yellow. That's not to say he wouldn't have been able to stick with him or whatever, but he probably would have ended up taking him down. I thought it was funny to see O'Donnell in the first half. He was kind of looking for contact, wasn't he? Looking to go across a fella, and the Kilkenny lads kind of stood off him a small bit. But geez, he was brilliant in the second half. He was buzzing around. Thought him and like Duggan was class as well. And it's going to be interesting. Duggan caused Cork all sorts of trouble under that high ball. Like, will it be Joyce that's on him? He took out a guy of similar stature in the semi-final. Will it be Joyce that will pick up Duggan in the final, as opposed to Tim O'Mahony as it was in the group stages? There's some fascinating matchups to come. And there's a couple of lads, particularly from a Clare point of view. I think we have a fair idea what the Cork team is going to be going into the final. It'll be the same 15 players, bar an injury, that started the semi-final. The Clare team, not as much. There's probably 13 picked. But Ryan Taylor will, you'd imagine, fancy his chances of breaking in. And
would you start him?
Again, it's like what John said there. I don't know how much he has done, but if he has enough done to come on and make the impact that he made the other day and be flying around, you probably would. But then you don't want to rob your impetus off the bench as well. But like, imagine the job Taylor could do. I know John said that it'll be Kelly on Fitzgibbon. I don't see that. I don't see that, because I think that's a no-win for both teams. I think Fitzgibbon will be tagged. Potentially Taylor could be a tagger. Malone could also be a tagger there as well. And Kelly will probably be tagged as well. And I also have to say, I don't buy this crack of, yes, the Leinster Championship is not as competitive as the Munster Championship. But if Kilkenny get to the All-Ireland, Kilkenny win the other day, oh, they're fresher because they did an easier passage. Like, I just don't think we can. It could just be knee-jerk based on the result. Like, Kilkenny had plenty of tests during Leinster. They drew with Galway. They drew with Carlow. They scraped over Dublin in the group stages. That's not saying that those games are competitive as the Munster games, but I don't buy the argument that they weren't on point. They were on point in the first half, weren't they? Do you know what I mean?
You also made the point now about their performances at Croke Park and second halves and stuff like this. So you're talking about a trend yourself.
Yeah, no, it's probably not a Leinster trend. It's a trend outside of Leinster, I would say. But I don't think that's anything to do with them being not battle hardened or having an easier passage or anything like that. I don't think that's anything to do with it. Maybe they're probably not as good as we thought they were, to be honest with you. And that was probably proven at the weekend. The Clare were not at the races for a half, and they still won the game. The interesting thing from a Clare point of view is, what sort of a percentage bounce do Clare get off that? Croke Park hoodoo gone, Kilkenny Championship hoodoo gone, free taken in Croke Park hoodoo gone, Tony Kelly against Kilkenny hoodoo gone. Like, there's a lot of baggage, you'd imagine, eliminated going into the final. And I know Cork are favourites in my view going into the final, but if you're asking me which team can improve more going into the final, Clare can definitely improve more than Cork going into the final.
Yeah, so you've Rob Downey been thrust in as a Hurler of the Year nominee by John Meyler. Shane O'Donnell is obviously in there. And I'm wondering who else is in there. And people maybe get your comments in. But you know what I also meant to say? When you go back to I think it was the first league game that Cork played this year. Remember the first 20 minutes against Kilkenny?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a more septic performance from Cork. A more Cork-esque of the past 20 years performance from them. And to go from that to this, and even the start of the Munster Championship when they were all over the shop, and especially in the first half against Waterford. This has been some change. Really,
It's a fair
comment in
turnaround.
here. Any chance Verney would say Cork are back? And the art of Cork having no steal a few years ago needs to be discussed. That's obviously squarely put at your feet.
I tell you what, when Lee McCarthy is sitting on Lee's side, we'll have that conversation. But what they did yesterday was brilliant, and there was plenty of steal there yesterday. There was no absence of that yesterday. But when Lee McCarthy is, safely nestled back on Lee's side, we'll have that conversation properly.
Yeah, look, we've been talking as well just since the games over the weekend about maybe doing a live show, live club fundraiser at someone's club. If you're a Cork or a Clare club and you're interested in hosting a live club fundraiser at your club, get on to us. Just private messages, one of us on X there, and we'll get back onto you, because at Shane Saint or at ML Verney, we'd love to do one. Serious crack, and we get a serious array of guests.
Yeah, there's a couple potentially in the offing, but it's basically who strikes first here. Whoever strikes first will be penciled in. Actually, this will be a great night, and the fact that it's two different counties as well. Like, imagine the hype in Cork, imagine the hype in Clare. Like, there's no one seasoned animal going into this that should deal with the hype any better, really. Do you know what I mean? So both counties are going to be gone stone mad the next 2 weeks, and that's fucking brilliant. It's exactly what you want going into an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, just so over the weekend as well, we should just mention that Galway beat Waterford in the Camogie Championship, and Dublin stunned Kilkenny. So that's going to mean Cork-Dublin All-Ireland semi-final, and you're going to have Tipperary against Galway. So that's two tasty enough fixtures to come down the line. Both, I think it's a double header at Nolan Park, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the only action that'll be in Nolan Park. They've had a bad week of it, like between the minors not winning against 13 men, the seniors second half fade out, and the Camogie team been beaten in a quarter final, which would have been a big surprise because they've been All-Ireland winners only a couple of years ago. It's been a bad 7 days for the Cats.
Do you see many of their players retiring after this season?
The senior hurlers?
Mm.
I'd be surprised if Conor Fogarty is back for 2025. I potentially would be surprised if Walter is back, maybe Killian Buckley, and maybe TJ as well. And that's, I'm just, like, you asked me the question, so that's like they're four that are likely to go. Will all four go? Like, funny enough, if it's to say one that would still be there in 2025, the most likely is probably TJ of that four, to be honest with you. Like, Wally's been a sub the last couple of years, Conor Fogarty's been a sub, Killian Buckley didn't get any game time at the weekend. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a bit of a change in the guard, and like, whenever TJ does walk away, and if it is at the end of this year, like, what a career, but what a transition they're going to have without him. Realistically, like, somebody else is going to be hitting frees in championship as well. And it's going to be a big change. I think there will be a big transition of players over the winter time.
Do you think the balance of Paddy Deegan at midfield is working? I mean, look, he's obviously an exceptional player and had, particularly for the club, had an unbelievable season. But do you think it's working with him there, Richie Reid centre back, Mikey Carey, David Blanche? Like, do they have the right balance?
It was working well in the first half.
I suppose it was the lads at the top end not finishing off the chances.
Yeah, it was working well in the first half, and as I said, I just think they left too much behind, and they should have had a bigger buffer than they had. They could have had a buffer that they could have just maintained from half time until the full time. Until full time, all of a sudden you come back out, and was it 2 minutes into the second half nearly, Clare are only 2 points down, having been 5 down, and the whole game is kind of turned on its head. So yeah, it's kind of hard to know, but there could be a bit of a transition coming. Just one of the comments in there saying TJ is a lot older than the other 3 lads I mentioned. He is, but like, look at the game time the other 3 lads have had. Lads that were, guaranteed starters for long, the vast majority of their Kilkenny career. Are they going to commit to being potentially a bit part player again? I'm not so sure, and I think some of them may have been on or off the record about this potentially being their last year anyway. So yeah, I think there's probably change coming. All great careers. The 4 of them, but there is change coming in Kilkenny in the not too distant future, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at their shooting down the stretch. So from the 60th minute onwards, when those last 6 shots they had, so TJ's free was dropped short from his own 55, we'll say, if there was such a line. That was Paddy Deegan had won a foul from Aidan McCarthy. Then a couple of minutes later, Deegan had a shot from 90 yards that went wide, give or take 90 yards. 64th minute, Cody dropped the ball short after intercepting Tony Kelly. I remember Kelly, that was there was a couple of options for him to pass to, and I think he blindly passed one in. Cody probably, did he miss-hit that? I'm trying to remember. Then Tom Phelan had a shot. He was soloing and probably blindly struck it off the stick. TJ shot from his own 50, we'll say, give or take, at the sideline. That was a wide. And a wide TJ from the sideline, maybe 50, was it 50 yards out, something like that? That last free as well.
65, I think, yeah. It was tough free, but it was always wide to the far post. A
lot of them weren't good open chances. They were like somebody taking a pop from distance or shooting under pressure.
Yeah, that was a lot of it. I just think you've been involved with teams as well. If you don't take your chances, it just has knock-on effects. Knock-on effects of leaving the other team in it and eroding your own confidence. And that was a big part of what happened. But Clare forced the door open. I will say that. Clare forced the door open, and there's a lot to be admired in that. And it's just real fascinating to see the bounce they get off being back in the final. Like, it's bad to see it, right? The final pairing is a Cork team that beat Limerick twice this year and a Clare team that lost to Limerick twice. So Clare, I put up a tweet on Saturday night, just kind of stoking the fires a little bit. Imagine if Clare beat Limerick in the All-Ireland final and halt the drive for 5. Like, everything that's come before that and that rivalry in the last couple of years is now like obsolete. It's defunct. Like, they've won the one that really mattered, and now they're in an All-Ireland final and their great rivals aren't there. Like, it's the perfect pairing for both in many ways. Like, it's brilliant. And it's fascinating kind of news stories for us to explore over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, well, look, we'll just go through some of the other comments before we finish up. Aidan McGrath, Cork's forwards are not lightning fast. They have two players, Connolly and Barrett, who are above average speed. Fitzgibbon, who is very fast. Clare have faster forwards as a unit. YouTube name says people slated Kelly last 2 years, but he hit 3 points when needed. There was nothing from Cody Mullen and TJ at the other end. Great to hear both. He played the second best sport out there. Is he referring to when we were talking about golf?
Tennis,
Maybe.
I'd say.
What, snooker? I mean, we brought them all up today, actually.
Hey, what's your top 5 sports?
Okay.
Favorite sports to play, favorite sports to watch. We'll just combine the whole thing.
Okay, well, hurling would be number 1 to play. Soccer would be probably be number 2. I did love playing Gaelic football. Like, we said this recently. Like, I preferred Gaelic football to hurling when I was younger, but then it changed. In terms of watching, I'd probably put American football up quite high there. Snooker's class to play. I don't know. How am I supposed to narrow this down? Do you have a list already in your head?
No, but I would have hurling. I definitely have hurling 1 as a total package. Hurling 1. I'd probably have snooker 2. Being honest with you,
to play.
To play and watch, I think it's top class. And it probably tennis wouldn't be far off. Maybe 3, racing 4, maybe, and wrestling 5.
Speaking of racing, have you ever been on a racehorse, like one that goes proper fast?
No. That would be some buzz now, but like that's not for the faint-hearted. Like no ordinary Joe just gets up and down. If you don't know what you're doing, and the horse bolts, you're in bother. Also, interesting one this day next week. A horse that me and you are both involved in could be running in Downpatrick, so we'll fill the viewers in closer to the time.
As I said to you yesterday, I was totally unaware because I haven't been checking the messages in the group for that. But how are the fetlocks looking at the moment?
Flowing.
And there was one other thing I wanted to say before we finished up, but of course I can't remember it, so we'll just move on from it. There was the sad passing over the weekend of John O'Mahony, who I believe had been unwell, and such a gent. Like, any time we dealt with him, he was just fantastic. Now I'm going to finish out the show playing a clip from that show we did a couple of years ago in Galway, but what a terribly sad loss.
There was so much going on yesterday morning. I kind of didn't, I was kind of, Jesus, that's awful sad. And I thought about the Galway. And then his face came up on the big screen before the match yesterday. And it just kind of hits you. Jesus Christ, like, an absolute gentleman. Couldn't have been better to deal with from a media point of view. Jesus, he was so amenable. Someone was telling me they were working they were doing the paper in Maynooth College at the time, and they rang him the week of the All-Ireland final in 01, and he took a call for like 15-20 minutes when he was in the car for like, you know, a college newspaper. That's what he was so amenable. We've had him on the show, we had him on a live show, and we had him on the show just, I think it was on a Monday after a game on him. He's actually travelling up to Dublin, and he pulled in somewhere to do the show with us. And just even like he's the last outside manager to win an All-Ireland 01 with Galway, obviously won in 98 as well. And he left so many memories in so many counties. Leitrim, Mayo, Galway, and like even nearly won a county title with Salt Hill, Knocknacarrow only 2 years ago as well. Absolute gent. And yeah, he'll be...
Yeah, we lost you there for a split second. Adrian McGrath going in heavy on Kilkenny, saying their support is embarrassing. River Power.
He's not wrong, Shane. He's not wrong. To be fair, they are not travelling in numbers anymore. The support is so small. People going up the motorway from even further down the country and meeting no traffic on Saturday coming from Kilkenny are very little. Yeah, I don't know. They really need to book up their act.
Plenty of comments in here. John Crawford, Tony Kelly's caused Cork massive issues. Didn't play the game earlier on in the year too. Yeah, that is a big factor there. Fergal, Brennan, halfbacks, midfielders were taking on extra touch, and forwards had started their run. Is that referring to Clare as well?
Yeah, no, he's not wrong there either. You're probably expecting the ball in the first instance, and it wasn't coming in the first instance. All of a sudden, you're out there. So there was a bit of that in it as well. Don't forget the old goat, Shane, before we go as well. We forgot it last week.
Yeah. Who's your goat of the week? There's a few candidates first off.
There was some amount of them, to be fair. I'm going to give it to Ryan Taylor, because I just think to play your first competitive action 12 months later and to fit in so seamlessly and make such a big impact on the game. Like you could make a case that he should have been man of the match. He had that big of an impact on the game. So it's Ryan Taylor for me.
I'd give it to Brian Hayes. I couldn't not. I mean, the impact he had in terms of winning ball against that muscular Limerick forward line, taking his chances. He probably could have scored a little bit more, but you know, that would be fairly harsh if you were to go down that road. So I just thought he was brilliant. Adrian McGrath says, who would Taylor start for in the final? Let me see.
No, he's not wrong. This is a lot to do with, you have to look at what players offer you. Malone will offer you an hour of solid piggery around the middle of the field. He will work up and down, and
he starts definitely.
Yeah, and he could negate somebody else. So unless you're pull him on your forwards. Now, David Reedy would be very harsh done by if he doesn't start the All-Ireland final. I thought he was effective the other day when other lads weren't, and he showed very well. So I think it'd be very, very harsh if he was left out. Given the amount of minutes Taylor has under the belt, I suspect he won't start, because I think it's less of a risk to bring him in, and he's maybe more of a chance of turning the game. Just when you have that pace, you can turn the game.
Yeah, do you know what? The more you say it there, you do have to pick it's like picking an all-star team. It's grand, everyone saying this lad should have got it, that lad should have got it. Well, who do you leave out? And I do struggle to name someone, even though Clare misfired the other day. I do think it would be difficult to leave out any one person. Malone has to start, David Fitzgerald has to start, so does Tony Kelly. Yeah, I just can't make a case for anybody, you know, be dropped out for him, even though I think he's certainly a first 15 player.
Yeah, you've been on the line, Shane, as I have as well, and you have to pick a team. Like, if you know a lad is going to give you, like, he's going to empty the tank for 45-50 minutes, but he's not going to potentially come in and make a big impact for that 10 or 15 different types of players, you know what I mean? Whereas that real energetic, buzzy type of player that Taylor is, listen, don't get me wrong, he'll make an impact if he starts, but you have to think of the bigger picture as well. What have we got with Taylor last 75 minutes? Maybe he will, but what have we got to come in with 10 or 50 minutes to go? So it's a bit of a balancing act there. I suspect he won't start. Yeah,
and then there's a comment here actually, which I think is on the money, from DMC. If Cork win, Patrick Horgan would be player of the year. Yeah, I actually think, and I'm sure he will top the scoring record in the final. And I thought he'd done his cruciate, actually, the way he came down on his knee at one stage. Remember when he sort of came down funny and hopped around? I do think that he will, and, you know, like, he's had some brilliant games this year, but I think there'll be emotion swayed and he will end up getting hurled of the year if they win it. What do you think?
Oh, I don't think so. No, hey, I don't think
happened
so.
Before.
When did it happen?
I thought Joe Canning was hurler of the year in 2018, but he got it in 2017, and I think that was more of an emotional thing.
Yeah, but he got them. He carried them to the final in that last 20 minutes against Tipperary.
Oh, he had some big moments. Jeez, don't get me wrong, but I didn't think he was. I thought Pádraig Mannion was probably more so that year.
I think Hoggy is deadly, but I'd have 10 players ahead of him, 10 Cork players ahead of him in the conversation for hurler of the year.
Wow, you've got
Patrick Collins, Owen Downey, Rob Downey, Darragh Fitzgibbon, Shane Barrett, Seamus Harnedy, Alan Connolly, Brian Hayes. That's 9. Is it 9 or 10?
I don't know.
I think it was 9, but no, I thought. Now that's unless he scores 210 in the final or something, or absolutely rips it up. If he rips it up, I still don't think he'll get it. Being honest with you, as a season as a whole, there's sentiment and there's
You know it's going to happen. I
don't think it will. Being honest with you, but
yeah. Okay, well, the comments are still absolutely flying in here, and we don't have time to read them all, but we will finish out the show just with that clip of John O'Mahony from the show that we did in 2022. An absolute gent. And look, keep the comments coming in. We love getting them all the time, and keep, subscribe to the show if you don't already do so. That's it from the show this week. Michael, we'll chat to you again soon. Take it handy, and folks, we'll see you all on Thursday.
Cheers, shut up.
I was aware of all these, what were coming into their veterans at the time, that there were, well, I would say more, it actually, the seed of what I did in Galway was sown with Leitrim, because we beat Galway twice. And we had basically 300 adult players in Leitrim. And if you can win a Connacht championship with that, and when I come in to commiserate a couple of times, we did beat them. And I'd look around this dressing room and see what was there. I kind of, in my own mind, you'd be saying, geez, if these applied like the other one, anything could happen. And then obviously through my teaching in St. Nathan's and getting hammered by Jarlath's and the great 94 team, I was aware of the Pádraig Joyces and the Derek Savages. Well, he went to Pats, but Divleys and all those. So, I was privileged, if you like, to have those young lads coming in with experienced players who had only won one Connacht championship in 11 years, and the Sean Og, the Pears, the Mangyans, the Kevins, the Jazz, all of those people were incredible footballers, and the chemistry between the two groups gelled automatically. So I didn't have much to do. I used to hear Kevin saying to Mikey Donlan, these fellas, you do the running and I'll organise things around here, So, and it was unbelievable. If you like, the cocktail of the youngsters coming in and the players that were there. And I suppose the motto, I know Pádraig Joyce said when he was appointed manager, I want to win everything the first year in the All-Ireland. I didn't take that view at all. I kind of said it within the dressing room. I knew when we were coming out of Castlebar and 24th of May 1998 that we had a fair chance, but we says we'll try and have this All-Ireland won before anyone realises it,
So when you're talking about, beating them with Leitrim, and then I read an interview with you not so long ago when you were talking about the importance of sports psychology and the influence of the Lions Tour in 1997. Can you explain how you tried to bring that to the Galway group?
Yeah, well, obviously I managed my own 89 to the All-Ireland, and the big thing I felt at the time, Connacht football was in the doldrums. I mean, the chance, and Ulster football as well, ironically, it was always between the Dublin and the Kerrys for the most part, and Meath came in there a bit as well, and Cork obviously were there. But Connacht and Ulster, if you met in a semi-final, there was no backdoor that time, there was a chance of getting to a final. And in 89, we decided that we'd throw the kitchen sink at it, because the belief systems I felt in Connacht needed a boost. We got a guy who knew nothing about football but knew about psychology, Bill Cogan, Kevin. So we had him in Mayo, I had him in Leitrim, and I had him in Galway. And effectively it was to change the narrative. Like when I started managing way back, if you won a Connacht championship, your job was safe for the following year. And I felt the quality of players when I came into Galway were such that they should be aiming higher. They had huge respect for Mayo, what Mayo had done in 96 and 97. So I says, look at lads, the only way you're going to get any glory is to bring the cup home, and they duly did.